The smallest species of this animal can grow up to be as small as less than 2 millimeters long, and the females of the largest species growing up to be about 35 millimeters in length. Small creatures, yet their importance in our daily lives is truly significant, though their presence in this world is rapidly disappearing. A global problem that must be resolved as soon as possible, while we still have time.
My name is Summer Soames, and I'm a fourth-year high school student looking to pursue a career in environmental management. Bees are a very interesting kind of insect. You may know of or have seen the bumblebee or the honeybee, but there are actually about 20,000 different species of bees throughout the world. Bees play a vital role in not only the very nature of a honeybee's duties in pollination, but as well as in the agricultural industry that strongly affects the human race. Although there are many different kinds of bees, they all pretty much do the same job, and that is to pollinate, to make sure that plants are able to reproduce. This proves the vitality of a bee's importance in our world, as they are the very origin for most of our food production. 1 in every 3 bites of food we take was most likely helped along by a bee. Out of the top 100 crops that make up 90% of people's diets around the world, bees are responsible for pollinating 70 of them. Many, if not all people, take bees for granted, and one way to appreciate one of the world's most crucial natural pollinators is to imagine a world without them. How would the world function without bees? If bees were to disappear, one of the first things to happen would be the huge descent in production of different foods and crops. Apples, mangoes, almonds, cashews, guava, avocados, blueberries, and the list goes on. Flowers that are visited more often by bees will produce larger and more uniform fruit than those visited less often. The beneficial effect of pollination is most obvious in tree fruit. Without bees, reproduction of crops will dramatically dwindle. The first people to be heavily affected by this would be farmers. They will lose grave amounts in income. The price of global crops directly relying on pollinators is estimated between $235 to $577 billion a year. The size of this agricultural production has increased by 300% in the last 50 years. Evidently, several crops produced with pollination like cocoa and coffee provide income for farmers, and in particular, smallholder farmers and family farms, especially in developing countries. This would then proceed on to us. We would no longer see all these fruits, vegetables, and nuts that depend on bees for pollination, as they become much less abundant. Thus, if we were able to get them, they would probably cost us much more money, and with that, we would not be as lucky to have these foods in our diet. We would have a pretty boring diet, if you ask me. Not only are bees important in the agricultural industry, but they are also important for our ecosystem. They are still responsible for pollinating plants, and that is what is so crucial in maintaining a healthy ecosystem. A plant's ability to reproduce will be greatly affected, as they heavily rely on bee pollination for this aspect. Therefore, if we lost bees, we would see many plants throughout the world dying off, and we would cease to see the beautiful forests and habitats as they erode with the absence of their dependent factor, bees. This snowballs and creates a butterfly effect. If bees were to disappear and the plants start to die off, it would affect people in terms of reducing the wondrous ability for these natural systems to protect our soil and to provide clean water to our cities. As bees play important roles in the agricultural industry and our ecosystems, they are also very important in various crops that are involved in our everyday lives, and that includes crops such as cotton. And if cotton production ended, it would impact the world's economy as well. Several millions of people around the world are involved in it, planting, harvesting, milling, and manufacturing it into textiles, along with the sales of these items. Without bees, we would be having to wear man-made synthetic materials that just don't feel quite as comfortable as cotton. I definitely would not want to live in a world without bees. However, the world is currently observing major declines in bee population, and this is due to a multitude of factors. One of these factors is pesticides. Chemicals used on crops to prevent other insects and animals from crop destruction can cause illness and ultimately death for the honeybees, and can also contaminate the honey that we eat. In addition to this comes the varieties of diseases, infections, and mites that bees and their keepers have to deal with, making it all the more complicated to save the declining bee populations. The infamous colony collapse disorder, or more commonly referred to as CCD, where a colony of bees will disappear leaving behind their queen and plenty of food for remaining immature bees, has seen a greater increase in happenings as time goes on. More so, climate change is also greatly affecting bee health, and therefore decreasing populations. Bees cannot withstand cooler temperatures below 13 degrees Celsius or above 37 degrees Celsius, and drastic weather changes therefore extremely affects the health of bees and thus growth of crops. If crops do not attain certain measurements of water, sunlight, and heat, they will not attain the nutrients that bees need in order to function. Bees will then die of malnutrition and crops are neglected with no available natural pollinators. A world without bees would not just be that our diet is bland, but it may just be that we might not have enough food to accommodate for the demand of the human race. In a world where the evolution of mankind is gravely affecting the survival of bees to the point where extinction is possible, is a scary thought, considering that great importance that bees have in our lives and the world. But there are ways that we can help advance and maintain bee populations into better life for the planet and ourselves.
Hi, I'm Nicole Saeed, a third-year high school student also studying environment and resource management at Loretto Abbey. Bees have been around for millions of years, but as of right now, their population continues to decline because of climate change, agriculture, and other human activities. But as Summer stated, there are various ways that we can help advance and maintain bee population to better life for the planet and ourselves. And ask yourself, what can you do to help save the bees? The first thing you can do is plant flowers or any other bee-friendly plants such as lavender, sweet clover, sunflowers, trees like poplars, and sage. Flowers provide bees with food for their colonies, and that's why they are essential to the bee's daily life. Also, pollination is needed for the plants to reproduce. Bees carry pollen from one flower to another and pollinate it. As a result, seeds grow in the pollinated flower, and new plants will grow from these seeds. Might want to keep in mind, bees are drawn to plants with open or flat tubular flowers, with lots of pollen and nectar. A flower's scent can have particular appeal to bees, and its bright colors may lure them in. Second thing you can do is to support your local growers. If you can, buy your fruits and vegetables from a local farmer's market, or CSA, which is a community-supported agriculture farm. Buying local from a farmer that you know means that you know if the food is coming from a monoculture or not. This is much easier in the summer, when you can get your fresh produce from a local farmer's market. Also, the honey you buy directly sends a message to beekeepers about how they should keep their bees. For this reason and for your own personal health, strive to buy local, raw honey that is from hives that are not treated by chemicals. The more you can support sustainable, earth-friendly agriculture, the better. But if you don't have access to a local farmer's market, eating organic goes a long way to help the bees. Another thing you can do is not to use pesticides. Pesticides are chemical compounds, which unfortunately is used to kill a bunch of pollinators, and one of the targeted victims of these chemicals are bees. There are various types of pesticides used in the agriculture industry, but we should all try and eliminate pesticides, as they are not only bad for the pollinators themselves, but for humans too. The fourth one is to not kill your weeds. You may not know that the weeds that grow on your lawn are dramatically important to the bee industry. Weeds help protect our diverse native plants, natural resources, and agriculture. Although some weeds may serve as forage for bees and other pollinators, they also play a vital role in bee pollination, as these invasive plants significantly outweigh their values as a pollen and nectar source. These are just 4 out of the many things that you can do to help save the species that continuously work hard and help assist in the production of the things that we use and consume. And it is our duty as the race who had caused them to decline, be the ones to help them bring back the population they lost.